What is up, guys? My name is Ben Hartwell. Thanks for checking out the channel. If it's your first time here, or even if it's not, why not hit that subscribe button? So if you saw the video last week, you might have seen that we did a test with the new Apollo X6 that I got to see how many plugins it could actually run at one time. And I said I'd do a similar thing with the satellite and with the Arrow. Well, today I'm going to dig out my old faithful Arrow interface with its one single DSP core and put it through its paces. Let's go. Okay, so we're in Luna. I've got the Arrow connected and a single track here which represents the single core within the Arrow. I've got the UAD control panel here which shows us the status of that one core. You can see that we're already using 10.2% of that core, no plugins running, just Luna. I've also got the UAD meter up so we can see an overall percentage of the core that we're using. Okay, so let's load some plugins. Now obviously we're going to get nowhere near the amount of plugins loaded as we did with the X6 purely because we're down to just one single DSP core. But it's going to be interesting to see if we can load multiple instances of some of the more DSP heavy plugins. Let's give it a shot. So just like we did with the X6, I'm going to start with the SSL Channel Strip as it's quite a DSP heavy plugin. As you can see, just by loading the plugin, not engaging any of the EQ or compression features in it yet, we're sitting at nearly 20% of our DSP core used. But let's engage that EQ and that compression and see how high it goes on the DSP meter. So with the EQ in, that's put us at 44.4%. And with the compression in, that's put us at 48%. So just with this one plugin loaded, we're sitting with nearly half of our DSP used, but we should be able to run another copy of it. Let's give it a go. Okay, with two of those channel strips loaded, EQ turned on and compression turned on both channel strips, we're sitting at 86% total usage. I think we'll probably be able to load one more of these channel strips, but we definitely won't be able to engage that EQ or the compression. Let's give it a try. So there we are, the channel strip has loaded, but it's put us at 94.4% of our DSP use. If we turn the compression on, we're just getting away with that. We're sat at 98.4% now, so there is no way that we'll be able to turn that EQ on. Let's try turning the compression off and see if we can turn the EQ on. That puts us over the edge and we hit a DSP limit. So with one single DSP core, we're able to load two full versions of the SSL channel strip and a third version without the EQ engaged. That's pretty good. Let's try another plugin. Okay, this is the Neve 1073 plugin. Again, it can be quite a DSP hungry plugin if we engage the EQ. It puts us at 53.9% of our total core used. So with those figures, we probably won't be able to load two of these. Let's give it a go. Okay, so here's our second 1073. It has loaded without the EQ engaged and put us at 66.2%. If we turn the EQ on, oh, it's actually loaded. We're at 97% of our total DSP used though. So we can get two full versions of the 1073 loaded on one single DSP core. We won't be able to load a third, absolutely no way. There's our DSP limit. So two full versions of the 1073 loaded with the EQ engaged on one single DSP core. Let's try another plugin. This is the LA-2. As I said in the last video, I really like this compressor. With just the one compressor loaded, we're at 27.9%, so we should be able to get a few of these loaded onto our single core. Let's give it a go. Two compressors loaded and we're at 45%. That's three compressors and we're at 62%. That's four compressors and we're at 79.3%. That's five compressors loaded and we're at 96.5%, so that's probably the last one we'll be able to load. Let's try anyway. Yep, there's our DSP limit. So five of these compressors can be loaded onto one single DSP core. Let's try another plugin. So this is the Distressor, probably my favorite compressor on the UAD platform. It basically sounds great on everything and you can get a good sound with it in a matter of seconds. It is fairly DSP heavy though when it comes to compressors and it's sitting at 37.5% just with one loaded. So let's load a few of them up and see how far we get. So that's two Distressors loaded and we're at 64%. Three of them has put us at 91%, so that's probably going to be the max we can load. Yep, try and load four and we got our DSP limit. So 3 distressors loaded onto the one single DSP core. Let's try another plugin. This is the 1176 Rev A. This plugin gets used on everything. It's sitting at 25% with the one compressor loaded. So let's load a few more up and see how far we get. 2 compressors puts us at 39%. That's 3 at 53%. That's 4 at 67%. That's 5 at 81%. That's 6 compressors at 96%, so that's probably going to be our last one. Yeah, and 7 puts us over our DSP limit. So that's pretty good going. For a single core, we can get 6 of these 1176s loaded. Let's try another plugin. Okay, so this is RealVerb Pro. As I said in the last video, the reason that I'm doing this plugin is it comes free with the majority of UAD interfaces. So chances are, if you have a UAD interface, you have RealVerb Pro. And if you did see the last video, you saw that we loaded a massive amount of these plugins. So it's going to be interesting to see how many a single DSP core can handle. So with just one instance of RealVerb Pro loaded, we are sitting at 21.2%. Let's load up a few more and see when we run out of DSP. Okay, so we've got 8 instances of RealVerb Pro loaded. That's filled all our insert slots. We are sat at 94%. So we might be able to get one more. I'm just going to load it onto the main output insert. That's put us over our DSP limit. But that's still pretty impressive to get a full 8 versions of this plugin loaded across just the one single DSP core. Let's try another plugin. Okay, so if you saw the last video and you remember when we tried the 55 Tweed Deluxe, we only managed 6 instances of it because it's such a DSP heavy plugin, showing us that each version of this plugin needs an entire DSP core to load. So it makes sense that we'll only be able to load a single version of this plugin across our arrow. And as you can see, it is sitting at 84.6% with just the one plugin loaded. So there is no way we'll be able to load a second, but let's give it a try anyway. Yep, there's our DSP limit. So as we found out in the last video, you need an entire core to load this plugin. And as we only have one core in our arrow or solo, you can only load one version of this plugin. Let's try another plugin. This is the Fairchild 670, which we also tried in the last video. Running just the one instance, we are sitting at 24.5%. Let's load up a few of these and see when we run out of DSP. So with 6 of these compressors loaded, we are sat at 93.4%. So I'm pretty sure we won't get a 7th. And there's our DSP limit. So 6 versions of the Fairchild 670 across the one single core. Let's try another plugin. So this is the Lexicon 224. If you watched the last video, you saw that we got quite a lot of these loaded. So it's going to be interesting to see how many of these reverb plugins we can get across just the one core of processing. Let's try it out. So with 7 versions of this reverb plugin loaded, we're at 80% usage on our core. I'm going to try one more, but I think this is probably going to put us over. No, 8 versions did load. We are at 98% total usage. So I'll try one more across the master bus, but that's probably not going to load. Yep, and there's our DSP limit. So this is the Lexicon 480L. I couldn't try this with my X6 because I don't own the plugin and I'd already used the demo on the X6, but I've got a demo for it on the Arrow, so let's give it a try. It's notorious as needing a lot of DSP, and as you can see, with one loaded, we are at 68% on our DSP limit. So I'm pretty sure we won't be able to load more than one version of this plugin. Let's give it a go. Yep, there's our DSP limit. So this is another plugin from UAD where we need an entire core to load one instance of the plugin. It is a really good plugin though. Another plugin that I couldn't try with the X6 because I'd already used the demo was the Capital Chambers. Again, this is very DSP hungry. With one instance loaded, you can see we're sat at 90% of our core usage. So again, there's going to be no way we can load more than one of these plugins. As you can see, we've tried to load 2 and we've hit a DSP limit. I know a lot of you guys were interested to know whether a solo or an Arrow could handle Capital Chambers. It can, but you can only load one copy of it. Whilst we've got capital chambers loaded, let's see what else we can actually load with that little bit of DSP we've got left over. So we can't load an LA-2 we can't load an 1176, and we can't load that Fairchild 670. So it looks like if you've got capital chambers loaded on one single core, the only other things you'll be able to load on that core are probably going to be legacy versions. Let me try a couple of those. So we can load a legacy 1073 with the EQ engaged. It does put us at 94.8%, but it does load. Same story for a legacy version of the SSL channel strip. We can load that with the EQ and the compression, and we sit at 96.4%. So it seems like if you do have only one core of DSP and you want to use the capital chambers, any other plugin that you want to use is going to have to be a legacy version. And speaking of what plugins you can load together, let's try a few different combinations. So here I have got a full version of the 1073 with the EQ engaged. I've got an LA-2, the grey version. I've got a legacy version of the Pultec Pro and a version of RealVerb Pro. We're sitting at 86% total usage. If I try and load one more plugin, something like an 1176, we get a DSP limit. Let's try another combination. Okay, so this is an interesting one. We managed to get a full version of the SSL, but without the compression engaged. We've got a 1176, a version of RealVerb Pro, a Fairchild 670, and an LA-2, and we are sat at 100% DSP use. So this combination of things is absolutely maxing out our single core, but we can run it. If we tried to engage the compression on the SSL, we're gonna get our DSP limit. Okay, let's try one more combination of plugins. So here we've got the Neve preamp, which is just the preamp section from the 1073. We've got a Distressor, a version of the Lexicon 224, and the Pultec Pro, and we are sat at 66% usage. So as you can see, you can actually load quite a lot of stuff from one single core of DSP. So there you go, that is some of the stuff that you can load with just one single DSP core in an Arrow or a Solo. I was quite surprised actually at how many plugins you can load. And if you go down the route of loading legacy plugins, you can load loads of them. Things like the Legacy 1073 sound really good. Before I got the X6, I was using just this Arrow, and the way I got around some of its DSP limitations to do some pretty big mixing with it was to use legacy versions. The other way to save some DSP is to use only the parts of the plugin that you actually need, like on that SSL channel strip where we can turn the EQ and the compression off independently. You can save a whole bunch of DSP by just using the parts of the plugin that you actually need. So if some of you guys are considering just getting into the UAD universe and you're wondering how much you can actually do with just a single core of processing power, I hope this video has been useful and shown that you can do quite a lot with just that single core. So there you go guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up below. If you want another video on my channel, you can click just up here. And don't forget to subscribe, you can do it right there. I'll see you in the next one.